So I guess I just have a couple of updates. So it didn't come out, but then the first thing is that for the 2 years, we've run a startup competition to fund. We fund 10 out of the 600 plus. About half of them are digital, but then half of them are non-digital. So that's something that you would be surprised that, you know, Philippine startups, people might think it's mostly digital related, but then there's ideas from tourism, from water, from mining, from energy that also people think about, right? So including, for example, someone that we funded, Pinoy Travel is a bus booking system, right? So you think, hey, you know what? This is not the usual kind of e-commerce platform, but then they figured out a certain niche in the market where people really need it. So it's kind of the bottom of the pyramid niche, or backpackers as well. The one that's making the most revenue right now is my queuing system, which is so that you don't wait in line anymore, right? So you go to, like, for example, a shop outside, like maybe a Smart or a Globe store, and then there's a long queue. So you have this system here, it just texts you 5 or 10 minutes before your turn to come back to the store. And you can't imagine how many countries actually need it. But then we also funded some social ventures like the dengue mapping tool or disaster awareness tool. So these are stuff that I think the Philippines needs. So startups are not just perhaps more digital, but digital and then how to address a certain need that we have. We've also had a lot of interest from other parts of the world, right? So at each stage, there's actually a funder already. About 2 years ago, there's only maybe like some advocacy events, but then there's only late stage Series A $1 to $2 million deals. Everything in between was non-existent about 2 years ago, right? So Jay and I will talk about that later on because we were kind of talking about 2.5 years ago, like nobody funds people with good ideas, right? And then I think more and more local funds and also regional funds came along. In fact, you know, there was a lot of events like Geeks on a Plane. We had 35 investors, mostly from Silicon Valley, to look at deals here in the Philippines, right? And then tomorrow and the next day is Geeks on the Beach. It just means that our ecosystem is quite healthy. So if you're a startup company, there's actually a lot of events that you can go to, or if you're kind of in the fence, should I do a startup? There's a lot of events for you to learn more about it. So that's also quite surprising and also quite encouraging, is that in the end of the day, you need a village to raise kind of a startup. I think the village, little by little, is actually being formed right now. From the e-commerce side, I'm just going to give some, you know, not necessarily quantitative observations, but some that, since I advise so many companies,